with Dude on the Lake. This is number 8, and this is a real simple one. It takes about 10 minutes to do all detail, and it's just a little card with the use of color and a little bit of pen and ink on top of it. So follow along here if you like, and there's one done with a little bit more muted colors, and it's just a hedgehog. This would be number 8 in the watercolor series, and this one would be very much a beginner. And you can use any kind of animal that you can draw to do this one, and it's just minimally painted. So as usual, this is not a card. This is a piece of watercolor paper, 140 pound, that's been cut down. So this would be just like a one-sided, and as you can see, it's probably, I don't know, 5 by 7, something like that, 6 by 9. So we're going to start with putting in the eye. The eye is done with just some Payne's gray. You see I left the pupil white up in the corner there. And a lot of this video is going to go 2 times the speed. So once I have his eye in, I go ahead and put a nose up in there. Same concept, and we're using dark and then lighter washes. Keep in mind, everything in watercolor goes on much, much darker. And this is dry, so I'm not wetting the paper before I do this. And I went back with the, picked up some phthalo blue. And this guy, you saw the 2 variations there. The one card that was in the paper ready to go to the gallery has a lot muted, more of a muted range of colors, lighter range. This one I kind of exaggerated the colors just for the teaching purposes, so you can see. And that's the ear on the off side of the head. Then he needs an ear on this side of the head. And that is a Payne's gray and phthalo blue mixture that I'm putting in there. I came back with a little bit of Payne's gray black on the top. Now this is going to bleed down into the blue and give it kind of a shadow. Now I'm using that same blue mixture that I did for the ear, only I've lightened it quite a bit. So that's starting out more of a gray tone at the top. Doesn't show real well in there, and I'm going to come back in and get bluer. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more blue, and these are just random hairs. And we will come over these hairs with a little bit of a black liner. Any gel pen will work. You can see, just for the color purposes of this, since it is watercolor, there's his 2 front feet. And then I did those with a violet. And I'll come over the liner on those. Now, this was done with just blobs of color on the right hand side, showing the watercolor aspect. But I have done these also with balloons over there on the right, with each balloon being a different color, and those are kind of fun too. Coming back in with a little bit more hair, or I guess it wouldn't be hair. Hedgehogs have kind of like spines, and this is kind of impressionist. This is fun here. I thought I was putting red on there, and in actuality, there's the orange, and it looked like I wasn't paying attention, and I grabbed orange, so I came back over that with a little bit of red. And I'm kind of using the side of the brush here and then coming back out on the tip as it goes to the finer portions and comes back. A little bit of green. And you can see that it's wet in there, and I am kind of letting those touch a little bit so they'll run together. I came back in with some violet, and now we're going to pull out some of what's wet and get some little fine hairs in there. You can see those colors in the back behind the ear starting to merge together a little bit. This is on the table. It's tilted about 10 degrees, and I do have the tape under it, I think. So here's a trick. Here's a credit card that I cut up, and I'm just going to drag it through, and you'll notice that it pulls out some of these hairs. It also creates a line in the paint where it comes back down almost to white. And people will use this to pull out trees, pull out grass, and it just kind of gives it a neat color. So there's any credit card that you hate or always abuse one. You see I put the tape under the front of it to take that 10-degree tilt out. I want this little wash I'm doing on the right here to stay there, not run down the paper just yet. And I'm dropping different colors in there. I made it pretty wet, and you see how fast that red diffused when I put a drop in there. And then I'm just dropping in oranges, yellows, blues, greens, and making a little ball of color and letting them run together. As soon as these dry, I usually come back and highlight them a little bit more and put another drop on top of them. So I don't know what that represents other than just a little color ball. Now I pulled it out the tape, and you can see that it's starting to bloom and run down to the bottom of the paper. It's easy to overdo it. This is the part where it's kind of fun. It has no meaning whatsoever, but you can play with your colors and see what they do as you put them side by side. I'm coming through with a little bit of red to give it just a couple lines in there, and you could do anything that you want. And now I'm going to come back and darken those just a little bit. It's a little bit drier than it was initially. Okay, so here's a gel pen, just a black gel pen, and I'm just going to put some lines and exaggerate a few hairs, and I put lines underneath the feet there, just a line around it. And you can see I'm putting in some whiskers. Trying not to overdo it, as is usually the case when I'm doing these. I'll make his eye, top of his eye, just a little bit darker and a little bit underneath of his eye. I've told you before, if you watch the other some of the other 7 videos, they would call this mixed media. This is not pen and ink, but it is the ink is coming over top of in a pen and ink. You would draw in pen, probably pencil first and then pen, and then go ahead and color it in. A lot of the old children's books are done, especially in the late 1800s, early 20s, up to about 1920, 1930, were done with a pen and ink style. So they would sketch in and then come over and do just little light washes with watercolor. And you can see this is whimsical, has no meaning whatsoever, with the exception of some people that like them, like hedgehogs, would pick this up as a little hedgehog print. So not necessary, but you can, if you want to add just a little bit more color to it, you can splatter. And in this case, I'm just doing a little red, yellow, blue, green. You don't have to do this. This would probably be a good technique if you wanted to do some salt in the background. But one of the intents is to show you that you don't have to paint the entire card. And the next one, I'm going to show you a little lake scene that I do that has only certain portions of it painted. And you can see I came in there with a hairdryer and let that dry a little bit. I didn't bother you with but you can dry these with a hairdryer. Always sign your work, here's the fun part. It's dry. Poof, there's a card. And I didn't mention it, but I wasn't paying attention again. And there is a little bit of sunlight coming through the window behind the shade there. And there's a couple of them. And you can see the one that's packaged up down below, ready to go, with more muted colors in it, if that makes sense. And the ball on the right-hand side. And obviously he's a little bit larger. But here's the one that we demoed today. He's smaller. Each of these comes out a little bit different. A lot of times I'll save one that I particularly like and keep that one for a reference. And then as I paint more down the line, I might not paint this guy for a year or two, and then going through the drawer of ones that I've saved, and I do put them in the protectors, the acid-free protectors, to save them, so I have them as a reference. So if you like this, leave a comment, subscribe by all means, and thanks for watching. This has been Ben with Stewart on the Lake, and go over and check out the wood carving channel if you haven't.